All right, welcome to the Lockdown Lowdown. I'm Dev Sahni, and today I am joined by the Hall of Fame boxing promoter, the man at the top of the tree here at Queensberry Promotions, and my boss. It's the one and only Frank Warren. Frank, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm doing my best, trying to keep things going, keep some sanity going in these terrible and troubling times that we're in.
What does Frank Warren do every day? We're all in lockdown together. What are you doing
All
to
right,
make
what
the
do I
hours
do?
go by?
Well, I do a lot of things that I normally do in the morning. I'll get up, I'll go for a very long walk with the dog, and then come back. I'll go in the gym, and I have my breakfast, and then try and, in the circumstance we're in now, try to find things to do because it's very difficult. Because our lives in the boxing business revolves around dates. You know, you have a date, you program a show towards that date. The boxers train to get maximum fitness levels and peak on those dates, but we've got none of that. So at the moment, we're just ticking over like the boxers are ticking over. They're hopefully keeping their weight down, and hopefully when we get some good news that we can get back into, this lockdown gets relieved, that they can get back into training, proper training, and hopefully get back into the gyms once it's safe to do so.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, let's get straight into it then, Frank, because all I'm hearing now, all we're hearing in the sort of boxing news sphere is that when boxing does return, it will be behind closed doors, as you'll be forced to do that. That's the kind of thinking out there right now. What does that mean? What is a boxing event behind closed doors, if you've never heard of that term before?
Well, you've got to look at what's happening with other sports. At the moment, football are trying to complete the season that got interrupted because of this terrible pandemic. And they're talking about finishing off the season behind closed doors. Each club playing twice a week to finish the season. As far as boxing's concerned, we will probably be in the same position to start with, depending when we do get the all clear. And hopefully, I'm hoping that maybe in June we can start putting some events together before they open it up to the general public. Behind closed doors means exactly what it says. It's closed doors. The public won't be allowed in. Which, our sport's so different from football because obviously football does rely on revenue from the live gates, but we certainly do for the big events. So it won't be big events behind closed door. It'll be a certain level. And why would we want to be putting them on? Various reasons. One, because most of the boxers who are boxed on those shows are having like a lot of people, having financial difficulties. The boxers don't fight, they don't earn. So we'll be wanting to put those on the shows. We'll be looking to put on, say, British title fight levels to start with, see where we go with that. And give the sport some relevance. If all the other sports are on TV, we need to be there with them. We need boxing to be happening. We need to keep the sport going. And for me, that's very important. There's no money to be made from us as promoters in doing it. It's impossible to make money under this scenario, and we don't want to be doing it. But if we don't do it, then there won't be any boxing. So people are going to turn around and say, well, how's that going to work? The Border Control made certain statements. Well, we've got to be sensible and realistic about this. One, we do not want to be putting any strain on the NHS. Two, people must understand that all medical staff at any boxing event, when we run an event, and if we continue to run events, are all paid for by the promoter. We pay for the medical presence, which we have to safeguard the boxers' welfare. The only time the NHS would get involved is, God forbid, a boxer got seriously injured and he would have to go to an NHS hospital that has a neurological unit. Now, statistically, that very, very rarely happens, but it does happen. So we've got to be very careful and make sure that wherever we did do a closed event was no more than an hour away from a neurological unit, and the board wouldn't allow that anyway. The situation is that we couldn't do that until the government say it's okay to do it, and the government would only say it's okay to do it if the NHS wasn't going to be under such a strain. There are, in London at the moment, the Nightingale Hospital, I think the maximum they've had is about 49, 50 people in that unit, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a 4,000 bed unit. A lot of the private hospitals have been turned over to the NHS are not being used. So there is space available, God forbid anything did happen. And being very realistic, events taking place behind closed doors are only going to happen if a promoter has the backing of a TV company or has a contract. So at the moment, I can only think of 2, maximum 3 promoters who'll be in position to do that. That'd be ourselves, Matchroom, and whoever's doing anything with channel, is it 4 or 5?
Channel 5, yeah.
Whatever it takes. So it's not going to be a stretch on the resources the boxing board of control, or for that matter, any on doctors. You have 2 doctors at each event. I can't see more than 2 events going on a week. So that'd be 4. If you're using 4 doctors, if it's just 2 promoters doing it. Because I can't see any promoter being able to run a show behind closed doors where he's got no money coming in from the public and he has no TV revenue. It's just not going to happen. So to keep the sport going, to keep the relevance going, keep it moving, we need to be doing this until this lockdown completely finishes, if and when it finishes. And when it does, then everybody can get back to normal, I hope.
Is there a scenario where the government says, okay, we can start doing some live sport again, keep the numbers down kind of thing, and the British board say, no, actually, we don't want to do it yet? Who kind of decides? Who has the ruling there?
Well, I don't think it should be their decision. It's the sport collectively, and you've got to be proactive in this. You can't arbitrarily say this is not going to happen. We've got to find ways when it is safe, and that's what we've got to emphasise on. When it is safe, and it can only be safe when the government say it's safe, not when I say it's safe or the Board of Control or anybody. When the Board of Control say we are going to allow certain things to happen, then that's our guideline. And from there, we should be able to react to that. And as a sport, deal with it as the other sports are dealing with it and working very hard towards dealing with it. Racing is doing the same thing. Golf is doing. They're all working towards, as soon as this lockdown finishes, that they can try and resume to keep the sports going, to keep, a lot of people, it's not just the boxers, and the boxers are the most important people in this, but there are other people who also rely on it. People who work for, like yourself, you work for us, office staff work for us. That goes, everywhere. The security companies that work for us, and, the various other people who we bring in on for an event. So a lot of people are affected by this. So it's about livings, and it's about getting back to some normality, try and getting back to that people can earn some money. If they're earning money, then they'll be paying tax. If they're paying tax, then they're putting that money back into the NHS. Because if the NHS doesn't get revenue, there won't be an NHS. It survives on the taxpayers' contributions. So that's what we've got to make sure happens. And it's very difficult times, very, very difficult times for everybody. But the boxers, it is their main. Let's not talk about the Tysons and all the big name fighters. I'm talking about the ordinary. The guys on their way up, the young guys. They rely on us. They've got families. They've got responsibilities. And so, like a lot of people who are struggling, that's going to be their only means of earning any income. So we have to bear that in mind. And when it's safe to do so, collectively work to make it happen. It's not going to be a strain on the Boxing Board of Control or anyone's resources, because this is not going to be, suddenly we've got 40 dates to accommodate, because that's just not going to happen. It's impossible to happen. So it's going to be a process. And hopefully we will, all of us as a sport will all get our heads together and work towards making it happen for the benefit of the sport. Because the sport, I look at, what happens in the TV world. The TV world is all driven by football. They're football mad. Money is spent on football. When they look to cut back, it's normally on other sports. We can't be a casualty of that. That's why we must be there. That's why we must be up and running. That's why we got to be, be reactive to this. I don't want to be going anywhere it's unsafe. I'm in that older age group nearly. So I don't want to be going anywhere where it's unsafe to go. We all want it to be safe. We all want to make sure it's safe. But it's not just about, there's the green light, get on with it. We've got to be able to get into the gyms. Boxers going to obviously have to spar. So we're going to make sure we've got all those safeguards in place, that we've got the necessary testing is done to ensure that they're not carriers. And they're not infected. Anybody participating, we've got to make sure all those things happen. A lot of things got to be worked on to make that sure. Sanitizing things. The gyms have got to be absolutely spotlessly clean. They're going to have to be regularly cleaned. I don't mean cleaned, once a week or whatever it may be, on a regular basis, and proper sanitary measures have to be put in place. There may be, at the early stages of this, we may have to put boxers into camps. Like the main event goes into a training camp for weeks leading up to a fight. This may apply to a 4-round fight. So everybody's going to have to be prepared to have to sacrifice, if you want to be a boxer, and for that matter, you want to be involved, to sacrifice certain things to ensure that we can do it under the safest measures that we can put in place as a sport. So we've got to, focus on all of that. We can't, as I say, can't just rush into it. All that stuff's got to be in place, and now's the time to be looking at that, so that by the time because eventually it must be lifted. By the time it's lifted, that we're all ready to go, and we've got all the necessary precautions in place to ensure that this is done safely as possible.
These studio shows as well, behind closed doors shows that we're talking about here, these don't sound like huge money-spinning events. It doesn't sound like you'd make any money on it, Frank. It just sounds like essentially you are keeping the sport alive and reminding people that boxing exists.
That is what we've got to do. That's a fact. I mean, that's where we're at, isn't it? It's not rocket science. It is what it is. But we're not in it short term. I've been doing this now for 45 years, so I know exactly. How I feel about the sport, what I need to do to help, in my opinion, to keep it moving and keep it going. So we need Queensberry to ensure that we're ready to go when it's all happening. We've got the support of BT. They're very supportive of boxing, but whatever we do has to be with everybody's consent and everybody on the same page as to how we make it happen. And that's why it's important now that we get the various aspects and the nuts and bolts, get them all together, all in place, so that we know by the time we can go that we're ready to go. And that is the important thing, that we're ready to go.
Where do you see these sorts of shows taking place? I mean, is this a case of booking out York Hall for as long as you can, or Brentwood? How does it work?
Well, they're very. We're going to have to be a little bit creative. I mean, it depends. I mean, the local authorities at York Hall may say no, because they've got to be staffed. They're not just say, "Here's the keys." Go in there and lock up when you go. It's going to be a situation where they're going to have some input if it is a York Hall type event. So we've got to be very creative. I mean, we've got some ideas which I'm not going to at the moment. We've got some ideas how we see it developing. And we've been working very closely with some of our trainers as to how we can make this happen. Alan Smith, for example, his main business is he has a business which is a cleaning business. They're actually, when I say cleaning, I mean they're going in sanitising places, and he does this professionally. So we've been taking a lot of advice from him, amongst other people, both in the industry and outside the industry, and from the medical side.
It sounds like Al Smith's going to probably clean up when he comes out of this.
In more ways than one, yeah, especially with those good fighters that he's looking after at the moment. But it's it's tough times for everybody. And I mean, I'm sure the last thing on the general public's mind at the moment is boxing, or maybe some of the people in the public are missing sport. I'm certainly missing watching football and various other sports on TV, but. The fact of the matter is, we are where we are. We're in this terrible position, and people's lives are at risk at the moment. People are dying, and it's an awful situation that's touching everybody in this country. And whatever we do, as I say, it's got to be at the right time and when we get the go ahead from the government.
And when that go ahead does come from the government, and we do come back and boxing is back, it won't just be Queensberry Promotions coming back. There'll be promoters, you mentioned it yourself, Matchroom will be coming back, potentially Channel 5 will be coming back. There is a feeling that there's going to be a real logjam of shows. And there's been a bit of sort of media talk about, all these promoters should...
I've seen this, but I've seen the Bunsey and Costello thing, and I think it's just, they're getting it all wrong. They've got it wrong. They've got it so wrong. The way they describe this scenario, it's not going to happen like that. What do you think, ladies? Pull the shutters up, right, we're all going to run the show the first week. Just not going to happen. Of course, as it goes on, we're going to have to get fights on. But how are all these people going to be able to put all these shows on? they're not going to be able to do it. As I mentioned, you know, there may be two shows a week compared to what the Border Control normally do. And as we got, you know, regarding venues, there will be people going after dates, but a lot of concerts are being cancelled until next year, not this year, until next year, because that's how the music industry is working. I mean, I've got very good friends in the music industry. One of my close friends, Neil Warnock from, you know, we do the Northrop Robin shows with. You know, he's been telling me the problems they've got. There's some serious, you know, like everybody, they've got their serious problems within their industry, and they're not going to suddenly just stick. You know, there's going to be 50 bands playing in big venues in London in the first week. It's just not going to happen like that. It's going to have to be sorted out, and it'll be a gradual process back. And by the way, the government are not just going to say, "There you go, everybody's free for all." It's just not going to happen like that. And I think, and you know, the boxers have got to get a living. And some of the stuff that, you know, was said on that show, it quite annoys me. I mean, in the meantime, you know, Steve and Mike, they're still getting their livings. They're still getting paid. The boxers are not. That's what the priority is for the guys. The boxers, they're the future of the sport. That's what we've got to look after. You know, they can't go and, you know, they fight once, whatever it is, every 2 months or so. At the lower level, if they're fighting every 2 months, maybe 4 times a year, that's their living for the year. That's all they're going to get. So they can't go and work one day, you know, doing a bit for GMTV, the next day for Radio 5, the next day for a TV company. That's what they have to do. So we need to focus on what we're delivering. What we're delivering is, to start with, will be at a level of those guys, maybe British title fight level to start with, to see how it goes. It may not work. It's going to be very unique. You know, at least we've got the experience of doing something behind closed doors in the studio when we did Solar Combat. So we know how to do it. We've been there, done it. So we understand what you need to do. But it's going to be very interesting to see also, once this does happen eventually, how the public buy into it and how the boxers respond to it. You know, the audience is not there to watch them, how they respond. I've got to try and make it an unsterile atmosphere. You know, at times I've watched football matches on television. It could be a great game, but when the stadium's half empty, you sort of like, you notice it, don't you? So maybe they're going to have to be creative how they broadcast it, how they film it. It's going to be quite a challenge for everybody involved. But everybody in sport is trying to get it up and running. The same as everybody wants to go back to work. You know, the hairdressers want to go back to work. The restaurants want to open. You know, people want to, everyone we want to get back to some sort of normality. But you know what? The normality that we had is not going to be it. That's gone. We're going to be, like they say, a new norm. That's what it's going to be. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take a while for us all to get into it. But what I don't want is what annoys me is all this misinformation going around. Because at the end of the day, the only ones who know what's going to happen is us, the promoters, because we're the ones who put the money up. The Border Control don't put the money up. We put that money. We take all the risk. It's not like the Football Association or the Champions League where the money's distributed, the TV money's distributed. It's us. It's our own money. We put the guarantees in. We do the contracts with the fighters. We guarantee them a certain amount of fights. We guarantee them to pay them. That's what we do for a living. So we are the ones, and we're not stupid, we're the ones who are going to make the decision of how we fund this ourselves, because we're funding it. Border Control are not going to put no money into it. And the Border Control are there to control. That's what they do. They're there to appoint the doctors, make sure the rules are adhered to, make sure that all medical aspects of sport are dealt with. That's what they do, and they do a very good job in doing that. And that's their role. Our role is to put the event together, present it to them, say this is what we want to do and this is how collectively you do it. And in the meantime, all the sideshow going on with all the people telling us what we've got to do and how we've got to do it, go and take a boxing Border Control licence out as a promoter and you do it then if you can do it better than we can. Very easy. Go and put your house up like I had to do when I was young, when I got into it. Go and remortgage it and you go and do it.
I don't think there's going to be a huge list of people wanting to do that anytime soon, Frank.
Where we are, as I say, what we're doing needs to come from an informed source, not just guesswork and, and panic mode. It needs to be an informed decision that has paramount. The paramount interest must be the safety of everybody involved. That's where we're at to start with, and from that we work from that level. And the rest of it eventually will all fall into place, and it will all pan out. And whatever's going to be is going to be. We've just got to try and keep the relevance of our sport, and as I say, make sure that some of the guys can earn a living. A lot of them are not going to be able to earn a living. It's a fact at the moment. It's going to be a struggle for a lot of people within the sport, a lot of fighters to get by. It's going to be a terrible struggle for them. It's awful, but that's where we are.
Tell me, how does this affect matchmaking, especially some of these lower level guys, the guys having 3, 4, 5 fights? Often it's foreign imports, it's the Eastern Europeans, the trusty guys that will come over and they'll help your guy learn. What happens now? Is all the money just staying in British boxing, essentially?
Well, it depends. I mean, the fact of the matter is so many shows were going on that you haven't got some of the fighters for some homegrown fighters to fight guys. Say, for example, Queensberry fighters. The younger guys who are boxing for Queensberry. So then you bring them in from abroad. That happens. But now there's not going to be a lot of shows around, so it might make it a bit easier. It's going to be tough for Francis and Jason who deal with that in their office. It's going to be challenging for them, but it is what it is.
Do you think this is the end of warm-up fights, Frank? Let's look at the example of Wilder Fury 2. Now, after that first fight, they both went away. They grew the fight. They came back. It was a multi-million-dollar affair. Because of this uncertainty, and you never know when it's going to happen again. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Do you think that scenario would play out again?
I don't know what's going to happen at the moment. They're contracted to fight each other, and that fight has to take place this year. So we will see what happens, but it's contracted to take place in the States. And at the moment, like here, there's no boxing allowed in the States, so we are where we are. It's going to be very, very testing for people. I'm hearing that WWE are putting events on regularly from their place in Florida. I understand that UFC maybe be doing something soon as well, but whatever's going to be is going to be, and it will all eventually all settle down to the new world as it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in boxing. I think there will be a lot of changing, and it's about who's going to survive.
Well, let's see this whole new world. And speaking of whole new worlds, Frank, you've entered the world of podcasting. Tell me a little bit about that. You've got some A-list guests on there, sort of week after week at the moment.
Yeah, I've had some friends on there and so forth. It's been like, as you know, I'm in the same boat as everybody. So I got asked to do this, and I said, okay, let's give it a bash. So I'm having a bit of fun doing it. We did. I've done it with Ray Winston this week. I've known Ray for a long time. So I think he was 18 when I met him, 17, 18 years of age. So we had him on this week. It was quite, I'm enjoying it. I'm told the feedback's not bad for it. So
yeah.
But we've had some good guests. Had Piers Morgan on there. Tyson kicked it off. I thought it was brilliant. Tyson. I thought it really was quite an enlightening and quite an open and honest. As he always is, open and honest. But I thought he was quite forthright, and I was really pleased with that. So Piers Morgan. We've had John Burko, the former leader of the House. We've had Alistair Campbell, who was the original Spin Doctor. Fred Siru was on there. Ricky Hatton's been on there. Ricky was brilliant. We had some really nice, some really good guests on there.
It's good. No, I'm enjoying listening to it, and yeah, as you say, the feedback has been good. Anything you want to add, Frank? Anything you want to tell people? How can you encourage people to stay at home, be safe?
Well, it seems to me it seems the people who are going out most are stupid. They're probably people that didn't go out most of the days. Maybe they should bring back the old Jeremy Kyle show, and that'll keep them in.
That's true. This is his time. Come on, Jeremy. We need you. Your country needs you, Jeremy. It's crazy.
But you shouldn't be doing it. These deaths every day and this contagious disease and what's happening out there. It's common sense, and you've got to just use your common sense. Especially if you've got a family, you've got responsibilities to your family and also to your friends and neighbours. I lost one of my very best friends, Eric Elric, who I've known since I was a young kid. He was at our last press conference. We was
Oh,
at
really? Sorry to hear
only a
that.
few weeks ago. I lost him, his family. He died. It was a terrible shock for us, and it's an awful. You think about what's happened with Anthony Yard and he's losing his grandmother and his dad. I mean, it's sad, and I don't understand people's mentality that they would still go out and risk their family's health by wanting to sit in a park or do stupid things. It's there for a reason. This lockdown. It's not because I don't want to be sitting indoors. I want to be out and about. I mean, I've never stayed in like long as I've stayed in my life. I don't want to be doing this. I'm always out, but you got to stay in. You got to listen to what's being said here. This is people are dying all around the world. This is an awful situation, and it could get worse if people don't listen to what the government advice is. And let me tell you that. And I'm not a person to an establishment person, but you've got to listen to this stuff. This is a real. This is an unseen enemy. This is not like we're getting my dad and my granddad in the wars where they got an air raid siren blaring out and you knew that you run for cover because you knew there was danger. This is a silent enemy that attacks you from nowhere and can kill you. So, you've got to be sensible and follow all the precautions that you're being advised to do.
Yeah, and our instruction is stay in your house, wash your hands. So, I mean, surely that's not that hard, right?
Well, it's not, isn't it? And let me tell you something. It may be difficult. You imagine. I mean, I grew up in a council flat in Islington, and it was a small flat that we lived in, and I'd hate to be there now under these circumstances. Imagine how difficult it must be for people who are in those circumstances. And you've got kids. You've got 3 kids, 4 kids in there, but it must be terrible to be like, it's tough times, but you've got to tough it out.
Got to tough it out. All right, Frank. Well, thanks very much for speaking to the Lockdown Lowdown today, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
I'll see you when I'm looking at you.
Cheers, Frank.